In a mansion where every nanny failed, a baby who trusted no one suddenly kissed the cleaning lady. And that single moment uncovered secrets the rich family had buried for years. From hidden greed to unexpected revenge, this story will prove that kindness can outsmart power in the most shocking way. The Manhattan skyline glittered like a crown above the luxurious Cross penthouse, a place where every inch screamed wealth, control, and quiet arrogance. Inside, tension hung in the air thicker than the perfume that lingered on the velvet curtains. Victoria Cross, the matriarch of the family, sat perched on a cream sofa, her diamond earrings catching the golden light. Her daughter, Jennifer, leaned beside her, clutching a tablet filled with reports about yet another nanny who had just quit. For months, the household had lived in chaos because of one small but powerful force: baby Harrison. The child of David Cross, a wealthy widower, had become infamous among the city's nannies. He kicked, screamed, scratched, and even bit every person who dared to care for him. No one could calm him. No one. Until today. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and in stepped Kesha, a 28-year-old cleaning lady wearing a simple navy uniform and carrying a bucket and mop. Her shoes squeaked slightly against the marble floors, drawing both Victoria's and Jennifer's immediate frowns. She wasn't supposed to be noticed. Just another service worker, invisible and replaceable. But destiny doesn't always wear silk gloves. Victoria's voice dripped with disdain as she said, "I don't understand why management keeps sending us." "Her type," Jennifer smirked, whispering under her breath. "Maybe she'll last longer than the nannies did. Or maybe the baby will just bite her too." Their laughter was shallow, brittle, the kind that breaks when real truth arrives. Kesha said nothing. She'd heard worse. The Bronx had taught her silence could be a weapon sharper than words. She quietly placed her cleaning tools near the corner and turned toward the sound of soft sobbing. There, in the playpen, was Harrison, his little face red from crying, his small fists pounding at the air in frustration. His cries had echoed through the penthouse all morning, but as Kesha stepped closer, something strange happened. The baby's cries softened. His eyes locked on hers, confused at first, then curious. She knelt down, whispering softly, "Hey there, little man." It was a moment no one in that house would ever forget. Harrison reached out his tiny arms and without hesitation, Kesha lifted him. The baby, who had rejected every nanny, who had screamed until his lungs burned, suddenly went still. His head rested against her shoulder. The penthouse fell silent. Victoria's jaw tightened. Jennifer's smirk vanished. "What kind of trick is that?" Victoria snapped, standing abruptly. "You did something to him," Jennifer added sharply. "Maybe she smells like one of his toys. Or maybe he's just tired of being alone." Their words were knives meant to wound, but Kesha didn't flinch. She only rocked the baby gently, her eyes filled with patience. Dr. Martinez, the family pediatrician who had been quietly observing from the corner, stepped forward. He'd been visiting for weeks, studying Harrison's strange behavior. Now his professional curiosity turned to awe. "This is remarkable," he said quietly. "He's never responded like this to anyone." David Cross, who had been working in his study, heard the commotion and entered the room. His eyes widened when he saw his son, usually so restless, sleeping peacefully against the chest of a woman he'd never met. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice low but tense. Victoria didn't waste a second. "A cleaning lady, David. They sent her by mistake. And now she's holding your son like—" But David interrupted her, unable to look away from the quiet miracle before him. Harrison's small hand had curled around Kesha's necklace, tugging gently. "He's calm," David murmured. Kesha finally spoke, her tone calm and respectful. "Sir, if you don't mind, let me stay with him for just 1 hour. If he's fine, maybe the problem isn't the nannies. Maybe it's the people choosing them." Her words hit the air like thunder beneath the polished ceiling. Victoria gasped, offended. Jennifer's lips parted in disbelief. But David's eyes softened. There was something in her voice. Strength, confidence, and compassion all woven together. It had been a long time since anyone had spoken truth inside this house. Victoria scoffed. "Absolutely not. You think you know better than trained nannies? "Then us." Kesha met her gaze without fear. "No, ma'am," she said gently. "I just think your grandson knows better than all of us. He already chose." The silence that followed was electric. Even Dr. Martinez looked at her with admiration. David crossed his arms, then nodded slowly. "1 hour," he said finally. "Let's see what happens." Victoria tried to protest, but David's decision stood. She sank back into her seat, her pride wounded. Jennifer folded her arms, muttering something under her breath about charity cases. But Kesha didn't hear her. She was too focused on Harrison, who was now asleep, his breathing soft and even. As she held him, a quiet thought passed through Kesha's mind. He doesn't need perfection. He just needs peace. Outside the penthouse windows, the city glimmered, unaware that a small shift in power had just begun inside the Cross family home. The woman they mocked as just a cleaning lady had unknowingly stepped into a battle far greater than she imagined. A battle between pride and truth, between money and heart. And with every gentle heartbeat against her shoulder, the walls of that marble palace began to tremble, not from noise, but from change. The 1 hour that Kesha asked for stretched into something no one had expected, a quiet test of endurance, of pride, and of truth. The mansion, usually filled with echoing footsteps and clipped orders, seemed to hold its breath as the clock ticked. Victoria sat in her velvet chair like a queen guarding her throne, her sharp eyes never leaving Kesha. Every few minutes, she muttered under her breath, little daggers disguised as whispers. "Probably trying to get sympathy," she said once. "They always play the poor card." Jennifer snickered beside her, pretending to scroll through her phone while snapping secret pictures of Keisha, already planning how to twist them into gossip for her social circle. But none of it worked. Kesha didn't respond, didn't flinch, didn't even look up. Her focus stayed on the baby in her arms, the small boy who had fought every touch before hers. She hummed softly, a tune her mother used to sing when the world felt cruel. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind like armor. "They'll try to make you believe you don't belong. Prove them wrong by standing tall." The minutes melted away, and peace settled like sunlight through the tall windows. Harrison slept, woke, and giggled. Real laughter that filled the air like something holy. David watched quietly from his desk, unable to tear his eyes away. For the first time in months, his home didn't sound like a battlefield. Victoria's patience cracked first. "This is absurd," she hissed. "There's something wrong with this picture. Babies don't change like this in an hour. She must have done something." Jennifer leaned forward eagerly. "You think she drugged him? Maybe slipped something into his bottle." Dr. Martinez, who had been reviewing Harrison's medical records, frowned. "That's a serious accusation," he said, but Victoria only crossed her arms. Serious situations demand serious questions. Kesha finally lifted her gaze, calm but unyielding. "I didn't drug your grandson, ma'am. But if you think peace is suspicious, maybe that says more about this house than it does about me." The words sliced through the silence. Even David froze. Jennifer gasped, offended that a woman in a cleaning uniform would dare talk back. But Kesha's tone wasn't arrogant. It was steady, matter-of-fact, like she had nothing to prove. David spoke up, trying to bridge the tension. "Mother, Jennifer, maybe we should all calm down. It's just 1 hour." But Victoria wasn't ready to let go. She turned to Dr. Martinez. "I want tests. Blood tests, samples, whatever it takes. I want to make sure she didn't tamper with anything." Kesha smiled faintly, though her heart ached at the cruelty behind those words. She placed the baby gently into his crib and faced them. "You've had 15 nannies before me," she said softly. "All with degrees, recommendations, fancy uniforms. How did that work out?" Jennifer bristled. "That's irrelevant. They just weren't the right fit." Kesha tilted her head slightly. 15 women, all different, all gone within weeks. But the baby didn't change, only the faces did. Maybe he doesn't need perfect resumes. Maybe he just needs someone who actually sees him. Her words were simple, but they carried a weight that made the entire room fall silent. Even David looked thoughtful. He rubbed his chin, remembering each failed attempt, the desperate cries, The sleepless nights, the constant fear that something was wrong with his son. But here, right now, Harrison was peaceful, safe. Kesha continued, her voice calm. Funny how a child knows real love before adults do. The truth hung in the air, undeniable and heavy. Jennifer scoffed, trying to break the silence. That's poetic, but you're not staying. This is temporary. Kesha looked at her directly. Then give me a week. 1 week as a trial nanny. If I fail, I'll leave quietly. But if I don't, you'll have to admit that the problem wasn't me, or any of the others. It was how you chose to treat the people who came here to help. David leaned back, impressed by her composure. He'd seen powerful executives crumble under less pressure. He glanced at his mother. She's right, he said slowly. We've tried everything else. Let's give her a week. Victoria's lips tightened. This is ridiculous. You're letting sentiment cloud your judgment. But David had already made up his mind. 1 week, he repeated. That's all. The deal was sealed in silence. Kesha nodded respectfully and went back to caring for the baby, her hands gentle, her focus unwavering. What none of them knew, not even David, was that Kesha had already spent 4 months working in this penthouse during night shifts. She'd been the invisible cleaner no one noticed, mopping their floors and overhearing their conversations while they talked as if she wasn't there. She'd seen Jennifer's secret late-night phone calls, heard Victoria's whispered arguments with lawyers, and watched David's exhaustion grow under the pressure of keeping his family intact. She already knew their patterns, their fears, their weaknesses. Every cruel comment, every careless word had built a map in her mind. A map she would use not for revenge, but for truth. As she tucked Harrison into his crib and turned off the lights, she whispered softly to him, We'll fix this place, you and me. Outside, the glass walls of the penthouse reflected the city lights, tall, cold, and glittering. Inside, a quiet war had begun. Not one fought with shouting or power, but with patience, dignity, and intelligence. And though Victoria and Jennifer believed they were in control, the balance had already shifted. The cleaning lady they tried to humiliate was no longer just part of the background. She was now the calm before a storm they would never see coming. The week began with a deceptive calm, the kind that hides thunder behind clear skies. Kesha arrived each morning with a quiet smile and a soft hum, her uniform pressed, her spirit unbroken. But inside the Cross mansion, the walls had begun to whisper. Victoria and Jennifer had declared a silent war, not with raised voices but with subtle cruelty, crafted to look like kindness. It started small. One morning, Jennifer faked an allergy attack, clutching her throat dramatically after entering the nursery. There must be something in this room, she gasped. Some cheap cleaning product, maybe. It's making me sick. Victoria immediately joined in, demanding that Kesha list every product she'd ever used. Kesha calmly handed over the bottles, her tone even and polite. When a laboratory report later revealed nothing harmful, Jennifer simply shrugged and muttered, Lucky you. But the attacks didn't stop there. Whispers floated through the halls, rumors among the staff that Kesha was too close to David, that she was manipulating him with pity. Someone even replaced one of Harrison's formula bottles with spoiled milk, hoping to make it look like Kesha's carelessness. Yet every time she stayed one step ahead, noticing small details. The bottle cap slightly loosened, the misplaced towel near the crib. She corrected each trap before it could harm the baby, never once accusing anyone. That restraint was what frightened Victoria the most. Kesha's calm intelligence was like a mirror reflecting their ugliness. Victoria began to unravel first. She sat in her study at night, whispering to Jennifer about protecting the family legacy. Her antidepressant bottles rattled in the drawer as she tried to hold on to control. Kesha had seen them weeks ago, back when she worked as a cleaner, hidden behind expensive perfumes in the master bathroom. She knew the pills weren't just for sadness. They were for guilt, for secrets too heavy to carry. Jennifer's own secret was buried under designer handbags and fake laughter. Kesha had overheard her late-night phone calls to a bookie, begging for more time to pay off her gambling debts. Together, the two women weren't just cruel, they were desperate. Their real goal wasn't to protect the child. It was to control his inheritance. Harrison's trust fund, created after his mother's death, would someday be worth millions. Victoria feared David's growing bond with Kesha might threaten her influence over the boy, and the money tied to him. Jennifer, drowning in debt, saw the trust fund as her salvation. To both women, Kesha was an obstacle standing in the way of power, and so they decided to destroy her reputation once and for all. The trap was carefully planned. 2 days into the week, Dr. Martinez received an urgent call from Victoria. "We have concerns," she said in her most polite, worried tone. "We think Kesha may be mishandling the baby. He's too quiet now, almost sedated." The doctor arrived that afternoon, notebook in hand. When he walked into the nursery, he found Kesha sitting on the floor, reading softly to Harrison, who giggled every time she turned a page. Victoria and Jennifer stood behind him, pretending to be anxious. "Miss Kesha," Victoria began sweetly, "we're just worried. You've been giving the baby something, haven't you? Look how drowsy he seems." Kesha looked up, expression calm. She had already guessed this was coming. For days, she'd noticed the way Victoria's phone calls stopped whenever she entered the room. That morning, she had placed a small voice recorder in her pocket, a habit she'd learned from surviving too many unfair jobs. Dr. Martinez began his inspection, but before Victoria could continue her performance, Kesha pressed a button on the recorder. Their earlier conversation played back clearly. Victoria instructing Jennifer to act concerned and say she looked suspicious. The doctor froze. Jennifer's face went pale. Victoria's hands trembled as the truth spilled into the open air. Dr. Martinez turned to them sharply. "You tried to manipulate me?" His voice rose in anger. "This woman is the best thing that has ever happened to this child. He's thriving because of her, not in spite of her." He walked over to Kesha, placing a hand on her shoulder. "If every child had a caregiver this devoted, half my cases wouldn't exist." Victoria's composure shattered. She stammered excuses, claiming it was a misunderstanding, but the damage was done. Jennifer stormed off, humiliated. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Kesha sat by the window, city lights glowing like scattered stars. She dialed a familiar number, Professor James Williams, her old mentor from a child development program she'd once attended through community college. His voice was warm, calm, and grounding. She told him everything: the lies, the manipulation, the test she'd just survived. But as she spoke, his tone grew serious. "Kesha," he said, "this isn't just a case of prejudice. This sounds like a setup. Something bigger." They spent hours talking, tracing patterns, connecting dots. With his help, she accessed public financial records and discovered the truth hidden beneath the mansion's glittering surface. Victoria had been consulting lawyers to build a custody case, one that would paint David as an unfit father and give her control of Harrison's inheritance. At the same time, Jennifer had been quietly draining family funds to cover her gambling debts, masking the withdrawals as maintenance costs. Kesha sat in silence as the pieces came together. All along, this wasn't just about her race or her job. It was about power, and the lengths people would go to keep it. When she finally hung up, her reflection in the glass looked stronger than ever. She knew what she had to do now. This wasn't just about protecting her job anymore. It was about protecting the child, his father, and the truth. The battle had started with prejudice, but it was going to end with justice. The grand meeting was arranged on a cold Friday morning, the kind of day when even the sunlight felt tense. Victoria had demanded it, calling it a family intervention. In her version of events, it was time to expose Kesha for what she called her dangerous influence over the baby and the house. The living room was set up like a courtroom. Papers neatly stacked on the mahogany table, glasses of water placed perfectly before every chair. Victoria sat at the head wearing her usual pearls and a practiced air of dignity. Jennifer sat beside her, eyes sharp and smug, scrolling through her phone as if victory was already hers. They weren't alone. A man in a gray suit waited quietly near the window. Dr. Alan Pierce, a psychologist they had secretly paid to declare Kesha emotionally unfit to care for a child. David entered moments later, looking weary but composed. He had agreed to the meeting only because his mother insisted it was for Harrison's well-being. He didn't yet know the trap waiting beneath the surface. Then the elevator doors opened and Kesha walked in, calm, confident, carrying a small folder under her arm. Dr. Martinez followed close behind, his expression unreadable, and to everyone's surprise, an older man with kind eyes entered next, Professor James Williams. His presence immediately changed the atmosphere. Victoria frowned. "And who might you be?" she asked, her tone sharp. Kesha's voice was steady. "My mentor," she replied. "A specialist in child development. I thought if we're discussing care and behavior, we should have a real expert present." Victoria's mouth twitched, but she forced a smile. "Of course," she said coolly. "The more witnesses, the better." Jennifer exchanged a glance with Dr. Pierce, signaling for him to begin. He cleared his throat and opened a folder. "I've reviewed the notes provided by Mrs. Cross and her daughter," he began. "There are concerns about manipulation, boundary issues, and emotional instability displayed by the nanny." Kesha remained still, letting him continue. Her calm made Victoria uneasy. Dr. Pierce went on about unprofessional behavior, questionable attachment, and potential neglect, reading directly from the false reports Jennifer had drafted. When he finally looked up, expecting denial or tears, Kesha simply smiled and placed her folder on the table. "I appreciate your analysis, Doctor," she said softly, "but I think you may have been given the wrong information." She opened the folder, revealing a stack of documents, photographs, and printed emails. Then, in one graceful motion, she pressed a small button on her phone. A recording filled the room, Jennifer's voice unmistakable. "Make sure the psychologist says she's unstable. I don't care what it costs. We need her out of this house." Jennifer's face drained of color. "That's not," she started, but Kesha interrupted gently. "There's more." She laid out the evidence piece by piece. First came the proof of the bribed report, payment receipts traced to Jennifer's personal account. Then the bank transfers. Irregular amounts moved quietly from the family's charity fund to cover Jennifer's gambling debts. Next, she revealed the photographs of Victoria meeting with a lawyer, discussing plans to declare David unfit and gain custody of Harrison. Every page, every recording, every signature was undeniable. Then came the final revelation. From her bag, Kesha pulled out a small plastic pouch. Inside, it was a sealed packet of pills, the same ones Jennifer had tried to slip into her purse the night before, hoping to frame her for drug possession. "You dropped this while setting your little trap," Kesha said quietly. "I thought it might come in handy today." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria slammed her hand against the table. "You sneaky little—" But David's voice cut through the chaos, firm and furious. "Enough!" He looked at his mother, then at Jennifer. "You both lied to me. You tried to destroy an innocent woman. You tried to use my son's name, his trust fund, for your games." His voice broke slightly as he turned to Kesha. "And all this time, you protected him." Kesha lowered her gaze respectfully. "I only did what any honest person would do," she said. "But before you say anything, there's something you should know." She turned her phone around and revealed a live broadcast screen. Over 50,000 viewers were already watching. "This meeting," she said softly, "has been live since we sat down. The truth belongs to everyone now." Jennifer's scream was immediate. Victoria lunged toward the phone, but Dr. Martinez blocked her. Within minutes, the story exploded online. Comments poured in, journalists started calling, and the Cross family name began to crumble in real time. By nightfall, every news outlet in Manhattan was covering the scandal. Headlines screamed about fraud, manipulation, and abuse of power. The police launched investigations into Jennifer's embezzlement and Victoria's false custody claims. Sponsors pulled out of their charity events. Their glittering social circle turned its back overnight. 6 months later, the mansion that once dripped with arrogance had fallen silent. Victoria lived alone, curtains drawn, her reputation in ashes. Jennifer had left the city, buried under lawsuits and debt. Meanwhile, a different story began to rise. Kesha had become the founder of a scholarship fund for single mothers, a dream she'd once whispered to her mother while mopping floors. Her name appeared on community centers, talk shows, and headlines not as a servant, but as a symbol of grace, strength, and intelligence. She hired women who had been dismissed and mistreated, giving them dignity and opportunity. Harrison grew up bright and happy, still reaching for Kesha every time she visited. David often said that his son's first real smile came from her, and that changed everything. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Kesha would walk past the old mansion, now empty and cold, and remember the day it all began. One innocent kiss from a baby who had seen what the adults could not. Her story spread far beyond Manhattan, teaching millions that respect can't be bought, and truth always finds its voice. And when she was asked how she found the strength to forgive those who tried to destroy her, she simply smiled and said, "The best revenge is not anger. It's success your enemies can never imagine."